Okay, we're going to continue with this item, the item we were discussing before in part 1 of Introduction to Scatterplot. So we've already determined that there does appear to be a discernible pattern, and it appears to be linear. All right, that's the first. That's really overall, even though those are two separate things. Is there a discernible pattern, and is it linear? Really, the main thing that we're interested in knowing is whether or not the pattern, if there's a pattern, is linear. Another item or piece of information you can tell from a scatter plot, and I've already alluded to it before, is whether or not, first of all, if the relationship is linear or if the pattern is linear, and I think in this case the answer could very well be yes. The next question or item is the relationship positive or negative? In this case, I would describe this relationship as being positive. And the reason I call it positive is because the variables, and what are variables again? The number of cigarettes you smoke and the number of colds you get in a year. The variables appear to move in the same direction, if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, maybe this will help. As x increases, so does y. As x decreases, so does y. If that doesn't make sense, consider it this way. When we are down here on the x scale, low values for x, 0, 1, 2, low values of x appear to be, I could draw a circle around those dots, low values of x appear to be associated with low values of y. Likewise, when we get high on the x-axis, it appears that high values on x appear to be associated with high values of y. As x increases, so does y. Low values of x appear to be associated with low values of y. High values of x appear to be associated with high values of y. So this relationship exists, or it appears to exist, and the relationship can be described as positive. All right, so those are two pieces of information we can tell from a scatter plot. The third piece of information we can tell from a scatter plot is how strong the relationship is. And again, I want to emphasize that there is no magic, there's no special talent involved in interpreting scatter plots. If you're saying to yourself, wow, a lot of this seems to me like, what does it look like? And that's exactly what you're trying to answer. What does this scatter plot look like? So in this case, and again, if you don't have a lot of experience or any experience interpreting scatter plots, in this case, I would describe the relationship between smoking and the incidence of the common cold as being pretty strong. And here's why. If I were to draw a line of best fit, that's a concept that we're going to tackle in a week or in another week or two. If I were to draw a line that fit the data really well, as best as possible, passing through the middle of those data as well as possible, here's a question I'm going to ask you. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and draw a line to that effect. Now, you'll learn in a couple weeks, at least, or if not before, that this isn't the actual line of best fit. But I just drew a line that seems to fit the data best. I would be willing to argue that this data fits. That this line fits the data pretty well. Here's my question: do the data seem to cluster tightly around that line or loosely around that line? Now, I would answer that question. They appear to cluster pretty tightly around that line. Now, we haven't yet talked about outlying scores. That's another benefit of scatter plots. When we look at a distribution of scores, a bivariate distribution of scores, it can help us identify outlying scores. And you may have already seen there's at least a couple scores, a couple cases that could be argued are outlying scores, and they are right here. Look at these people. What did I say a little bit ago about the nature of this relationship? I described it as being positive, which means low values on x are associated with low values of y, and that's true for a lot of cases. High values on x, or high values of x, appear to be associated with high values of y, and that's true for a lot of cases here too. Same with the middle. Middling scores on x appear to be associated with middling scores on y. But where are those outlying scores? Do you see them? They're right here. Who are these people? Who are these two people right here? These are people who report smoking a lot, but not experiencing a lot of colds. They don't fit the pattern. Where is most of the pattern? Most of the pattern is right here. Getting back to strength, again, this scatter plot would be indicative, or at least it was my intention to display, a strong relationship. I drew a line that appears to fit these data fairly well. It appears to pass in a straight fashion, linear fashion, through the data about halfway, midway, and the dots, with a couple of exceptions, the dots appear to fit the data pretty well. So we would describe that relationship as strong. So if you were asked to describe the relationship, or answer the question, I should say, the question, is there a relationship between smoking and the incidence of the common cold, I think you would be fairly accurate to say, yes, there is a relationship between smoking and incidence of the common cold based on these data, maybe not based on other data, but based on these data. There appears to be a relationship that's linear. The relationship is positive. Low values on X are associated with low values on Y. High values on X are associated with high values on Y. And third, the relationship is, or appears to be, strong, with a couple of exceptions over here. All right, so that's just a quick introduction to scatterplots.